Has it ever occurred to you that the most terrifying thing in the world isn't a monster under the bed, but something that waits for you in plain sight? Something everyone looks at every single day and never sees. I'm going to tell you about the time I went looking for a staircase. Just a staircase. But what I found at the top of it still makes me check my apartment for plants. Yes, plants. And you're about to understand why. Let's get acquainted. My name is Marcus. And if you're expecting to hear a story about a brave explorer, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm an archivist. Well, I was before all of this. My job is to sit in the municipal basement, sorting through old maps of rusty water pipes and century-old lawsuits. The smell down there is fitting, a mixture of damp paper, mold, and someone's unfulfilled hopes. The most exciting thing that happened in the last 5 years was when I found a contract for the sale of a donkey written with a grammatical error. I'm not kidding. But one morning, a folder landed on my desk. Honestly, at first I thought it was someone's prank. The folder was made of thick black cardboard, unmarked, tied with twine that smelled not like dust, but like the forest. Wet earth and pine needles. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, a yellowed landscape format page. On it, a map of our city was drawn in ink. But it was strange. No streets, no houses. Just a network of twisting lines, like veins. And my attention was immediately drawn to a point in the center. It was marked with the symbol L'Échelle du Roi. I know a little French. It translates to the King's Staircase, a staircase that leads to nowhere, because above ground in that spot, there was nothing but Oak Grove, a park where mothers with strollers used to love walking until people started disappearing there. But more on that later. For the first few seconds, I just stared at the map. You know that feeling when it's not just a little bell ringing in your head, but a full-blown alarm? Goosebumps ran down my arms, not from the cold, but from some kind of animal recognition, as if I had seen those lines before. I brushed it off. Marcus, you've gone crazy from boredom. But the twine, that damn twine. A clump of fresh dirt was stuck to it, and a tiny earthworm was wriggling in that dirt. In an archive where the humidity is kept at 0%. That's impossible. I started digging. At first, just out of professional curiosity, I pulled up City Chronicles, town hall reports. They wrote a lot about Oak Grove, but very vaguely. Unfavorable location, challenging terrain. Then I stumbled upon the police bulletins. Case number 74, C, 1982, 8 people in 3 months. All of them disappeared on sunny days between noon and 1 o'clock. And the most horrifying part, they were found. You understand? They were all found, but found in different ways. The first one, on a playground. He was sitting on a bench with his back to the path. A police officer called out to him. Silence. He walked closer to touch his shoulder, and the man crumbled like a sand sculpture. Inside, everything that had been organic had turned into fine gray pollen. In the coroner's report, I read a phrase I will never forget. Cause of death, instantaneous desiccation, as if exposed to a vacuum for 500 years. There wasn't a single cell of water left in the body. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Every new detail was more terrifying than the last. All of the missing people had exhibited the same strange behavior before vanishing. They began to fear the smell of chlorophyll. A neighbor of one of the victims testified. She threw all the flowers out of her house, screaming that they were whispering in a language that sounded like cracking bones. And the last one to disappear, a biology teacher, left behind a diary where, page after page, he scribbled the equation for photosynthesis. But in the formula, instead of the usual 6 molecules of water and carbon dioxide, he wrote in human fear. He claimed he had found an error in the textbooks. Then it got worse. I found a man who had worked in a greenhouse near the Grove. We met in a bar because he flatly refused to come to the archive. Elderly, with trembling hands, but completely sober. I showed him a copy of the symbol from the map. The King's Staircase, I asked. Where is it? He grabbed my hand with such force that bruises were left behind. His reaction was pure panic. You don't understand, kid, he whispered. glancing around the empty bar. It's not a staircase going up, it's a trunk. At that moment, I thought he was delirious, but he continued. What we think of as Oak Grove is not a forest. It's one single entity, one Marcus. The root system weaves under the entire city, and the King's Staircase is its main stem, plunging downward toward the core. It's a funnel, and it's not a plant as we understand it. It's a consciousness, slow, malevolent, waiting. I should have stopped, seriously, but you know that stupid human curiosity. I felt that something in my life had broken irreparably, and to piece it back together, I had to see it through to the end. So I went to the Grove, the very next day, at noon. The park was unnaturally silent. The birds fell quiet the moment I crossed some invisible boundary. The air grew thick, sweet to the point of nausea. I walked toward the center of the grove, to where the symbol was marked on the map, and I found it. It wasn't what you're picturing. It was a perfectly circular sinkhole in the earth, about 5 meters in diameter, utterly black inside, its edges overgrown with moss that was breathing. It was slowly rising and falling, and with every inhale, the smell of raw meat and freshly cut grass wafted from the pit. And inside that blackness, steps were visible, not stone, organic, like the vertebrae of a giant creature, spiraling downward into the pulsating darkness. I leaned in, just a little. I just needed to look to be sure. And then I heard a voice. It wasn't a sound. It vibrated somewhere in my molars. The voice said, "You brought what I love, Marcus, the archivist. You brought me your fear, and it photosynthesizes." In that second, the moss on the edge of the pit stopped breathing. A sound erupted that I can't describe as anything other than 1,000 mouths inhaling simultaneously, and a column of light shot out of the pit. But it was wrong light. It was green, but not the green of leaves. It was the color of rot, the color of decay, the color of absolute biological madness. It hit me in the face, and I felt my skin begin to tighten and the taste of copper and pollen fill my mouth. I understood that I no longer belonged to myself. I had become part of someone else's hunger. I don't remember how I got out, but I woke up at the edge of the park, my hands scraped bloody. I ran. I ran without looking back, straight home. And you know what the scariest part is? For the first few days, I thought it was over, that I was safe. And then I noticed something in my apartment. My ficus, which I hadn't watered in a week, had shot up to the ceiling and unfurled all its leaves like palms, turned in my direction. My dreams became an endless whisper of roots breaking through concrete. And this morning, when I was shaving in front of the mirror and looked at my reflection, I saw a tiny pale green sprout pushing its way out of the pupil of my left eye.